Nathan Drake, the everyman's adventure hero. Introduction. Nathan Drake stands as one of gaming's most beloved protagonists, a character who successfully bridged the gap between larger-than-life action heroes and relatable everyday individuals. Created by Naughty Dog for the Uncharted series, Drake embodies the modern adventure hero, part Indiana Jones, part wisecracking everyman, and entirely human in his flaws and vulnerabilities. Over the course of 4 main games and various spin-offs, Nathan Drake evolved from a charming treasure hunter into a complex character grappling with the costs of his adventurous lifestyle and the responsibilities of growing up. What sets Drake apart from many video game protagonists is his fundamental humanity. He bleeds, he struggles, he makes mistakes, and he faces genuine consequences for his actions. His journey from the cocky young thief in Drake's Deception to the reluctant retiree in A Thief's End represents one of gaming's most compelling character arcs, exploring themes of legacy, family, and the price of living a life of constant adventure. Physical appearance and presentation. Nathan Drake's design brilliantly captures the essence of an accessible action hero. He's neither the muscle-bound superhuman nor the perfectly coiffed leading man typical of many video game protagonists. Instead, Drake appears as an athletic but realistically proportioned man in his 30s, with brown hair that becomes increasingly disheveled as his adventures progress, stubble that suggests someone too busy escaping death traps to maintain perfect grooming, and clothing that actually looks like it's been through the adventures he experiences. His signature look, a half-tucked Henley shirt, worn jeans, and shoulder holster, strikes the perfect balance between practical adventuring gear and casual everyman attire. This costume design choice was brilliant in its simplicity. Drake looks like someone you might meet at a coffee shop, not a superhero or military operative. The fact that his clothes become progressively more torn, dirty, and bloodied throughout each game adds to the sense that he's genuinely experiencing these harrowing adventures rather than simply powering through them unscathed. Drake's physical expressiveness, particularly in the later games with improved motion capture technology, contributes significantly to his appeal. His facial expressions range from cocky grins to genuine terror. His body language shifts from confident swagger to exhausted stumbling, and his voice, masterfully performed by Nolan North, carries the perfect mix of charm, determination, and occasional vulnerability. Personality. The charming rogue with a heart of gold. Nathan Drake's personality is a carefully crafted blend of archetypal adventure hero traits and refreshingly human characteristics that make him both aspirational and relatable. The quick-witted optimist. Drake's most immediately apparent trait is his seemingly inexhaustible supply of quips, one-liners, and pop culture references. Even in the most dire circumstances, hanging from a cliff, trapped in a collapsing building, surrounded by armed mercenaries, Drake maintains a running commentary that ranges from genuinely funny to desperately whistling in the dark. This verbal sparring serves multiple purposes. It endears him to players, provides comic relief during intense sequences, and reveals his coping mechanism for processing the constant life-threatening situations he encounters. However, Drake's humor isn't just surface-level entertainment. His wisecracks often mask deeper anxieties and serve as a defense mechanism against the psychological toll of his lifestyle. The more dangerous the situation, the more likely Drake is to crack jokes, suggesting someone who uses humor to maintain sanity in insane circumstances. The loyal friend and reluctant leader. Despite his reputation as a treasure-hunting loner, Drake consistently demonstrates fierce loyalty to those he cares about. His relationships with Victor Sullivan, Elena Fisher, and Chloe Fraser reveal someone who will risk everything for his friends, even when it conflicts with his treasure-hunting goals. This loyalty often puts him in difficult positions, forcing him to choose between personal gain and protecting those he loves. Drake's leadership style, when forced into leadership roles, tends toward the reluctant and collaborative. He doesn't bark orders or demand obedience, but rather tries to keep everyone alive through quick thinking and adaptability. His approach to problem-solving is notably democratic. He listens to input from companions and often incorporates their suggestions into his plans. The flawed hero. What makes Drake particularly compelling is his catalog of very human flaws. He's reckless to the point of endangering himself and others. He lies frequently, often to protect people, but sometimes for selfish reasons. He has a tendency toward obsession that can blind him to consequences, and he struggles with commitment and responsibility. These flaws aren't just character quirks. They drive plot conflicts and create genuine consequences throughout the series. Drake's relationship with violence is particularly complex. While he's undeniably skilled in combat and capable of dispatching dozens of enemies per game, the narrative consistently portrays violence as a last resort and shows Drake's discomfort with the body count that follows in his wake. His horror at some of the more brutal antagonists reflects someone who, despite his capabilities, hasn't become desensitized to violence. The reluctant killer. One of the most interesting aspects of Drake's character is the disconnect between his gameplay actions and his narrative persona. While players control Drake through sequences where he eliminates hundreds of enemies, the character himself is portrayed as someone who dislikes violence and killing. This ludonarrative dissonance has been much discussed by critics, but it also creates an interesting tension. Drake is someone who's exceptionally good at something he doesn't particularly want to be good at. The games handle this by consistently portraying Drake's enemies as shooting first, making his violence reactive rather than aggressive. His arsenal tends toward practical weapons rather than exotic or overpowered gear, and his combat animations often show him taking damage and struggling rather than effortlessly dispatching foes. Evolution across the series. Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, 2007. The Introduction. In his debut appearance, Nathan Drake is presented as a confident, wisecracking treasure hunter driven by the legacy of his supposed ancestor, Sir Francis Drake. This initial version of the character establishes his core traits: the humor, the recklessness, the charm, and the underlying nobility that drives him to protect Elena and Sully even when it would be easier to abandon them. The first game's Drake is somewhat more callous and mercenary than later iterations. His primary motivation is the treasure itself, and while he demonstrates loyalty to his companions, there's less introspection about the costs of his lifestyle. This version of Drake is closest to the traditional action-adventure hero archetype. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, 2009, The Deepening. Among Thieves significantly developed Drake's character, introducing moral complexity and genuine consequences for his actions. The game explores his relationship with Chloe Fraser, revealing someone capable of genuine romantic feelings, but struggling with commitment. More importantly, it shows Drake grappling with the realization that his treasure hunting directly endangers innocent people. The introduction of Zoran Lazarevic as an antagonist, who explicitly calls out Drake's body count, forces both the character and players to confront the violence inherent in his adventures. Drake's horror at Lazarevic's brutality and his determination to stop him regardless of personal cost show a character developing a stronger moral compass. Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, 2011. The Origins. Drake's Deception delved into Nathan's backstory, revealing his origins as a young thief who adopted the Drake surname and his long history with Victor Sullivan. This exploration of his past adds depth to his character, showing how his relationship with Sully shaped his development and revealing the insecurities that drive his treasure-hunting obsession. The game's exploration of Drake's psychological state, particularly his hallucinations in the desert and his obsession with proving his connection to Sir Francis Drake, reveals someone struggling with identity and self-worth. This version of Drake is more vulnerable and introspective, though still driven by the same core motivations. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, 2016, The Culmination. A Thief's End presents Drake's most mature and complex characterization. Now married to Elena and attempting to live a normal life, he's forced to confront the addictive nature of his adventuring lifestyle when his supposedly dead brother Sam returns with one last job. This iteration of Drake is older, more thoughtful, and acutely aware of the costs his lifestyle has imposed on himself and those he loves. The game's central conflict, Drake's desire for adventure versus his commitment to Elena and a stable life, creates the series' most emotionally resonant story. Drake's struggle with domesticity, his lies to Elena about his activities, and his ultimate growth into someone capable of finding adventure without abandoning responsibility represent the character's most significant development. Key relationships. Victor Sully Sullivan, the father figure. Drake's relationship with Sully forms the emotional backbone of the entire series. More than just a partner in treasure hunting, Sully serves as Drake's father figure, mentor, and moral compass. Their dynamic combines genuine affection with mutual exasperation. Sully often serves as the voice of reason, trying to talk Drake out of his more dangerous schemes, while Drake's youth and enthusiasm reinvigorate Sully's love of adventure. The relationship works because it's built on mutual respect and genuine care rather than simple utility. Both men would risk everything for the other, and their banter feels like that of family members who've known each other for decades. Sully's presence often brings out Drake's more thoughtful side, while Drake's energy helps Sully feel young again. Elena Fisher, the grounding force. Elena represents Drake's connection to the normal world and his potential for growth beyond treasure hunting. Their relationship evolves from professional collaboration to romantic partnership to marriage, with each stage revealing new aspects of Drake's character. Elena serves as more than just a love interest. She's Drake's equal in courage and determination, often proving more level-headed in crisis situations. Her work as a journalist provides a counterpoint to Drake's treasure hunting, showing someone who seeks truth and justice through legitimate means. Their relationship's central tension, her desire for stability versus his need for adventure, drives much of the series' emotional development. Sam Drake, the complicated brother. The introduction of Sam in Uncharted retroactively recontextualizes much of Nathan's character development. Sam represents the path Nathan could have taken, someone who never moved beyond the thrill of the hunt to consider its consequences. Their relationship is complicated by years of separation, mutual resentment, and genuine love. Sam's presence forces Nathan to confront his own growth and change. Where once he might have embraced Sam's reckless plan without question, married Nathan must weigh his brother's needs against his responsibilities to Elena. This creates the series' most complex family dynamic and drives its most mature storytelling. Chloe Fraser, the road not taken. Chloe represents an alternative path for Drake, someone who shares his adventurous spirit without the moral constraints that sometimes hold him back. Their relationship is built on mutual attraction and shared interests, but lacks the deep emotional connection he finds with Elena. Chloe's pragmatism often contrasts with Drake's idealism, creating interesting moral tensions. She's more willing to cut losses and abandon missions when they become too dangerous, while Drake's loyalty and stubbornness often drive him to continue past the point of reason. Themes and character analysis. The cost of adventure. Throughout the series, Drake embodies the theme of adventure's hidden costs. While his treasure hunting provides excitement and financial reward, it also isolates him from normal life, puts his loved ones in danger, and takes a psychological toll that becomes increasingly apparent as the series progresses. Drake's character arc represents a gradual awakening to these costs, and his eventual choice to find meaning and excitement within the bounds of a responsible life. This theme resonates particularly strongly in A Thief's End, where Drake must confront the addictive nature of his lifestyle and choose between the thrill of adventure and the deeper satisfaction of committed relationships. Identity and legacy. Drake's obsession with Sir Francis Drake and his constant need to prove himself reveal deep-seated insecurities about identity and worth. Having grown up without family or stability, he's created an identity around his supposed connection to the famous explorer and his reputation as a treasure hunter. The revelation that his connection to Francis Drake is fabricated forces him to confront questions about authentic identity versus constructed persona. His growth involves learning to value himself for who he is rather than what he's accomplished or whom he's descended from. Masculinity and vulnerability. Drake represents a more emotionally available form of masculinity than many action heroes. He's comfortable expressing fear, affection, and uncertainty. His humor often serves as emotional regulation rather than mere bravado, and his relationships are built on genuine communication and mutual support. His willingness to be vulnerable with Elena and Sully, his capacity for growth and change, and his ultimate choice of commitment over freedom represent a mature approach to masculine identity that acknowledges both strength and emotional needs. Cultural impact and legacy. Redefining the video game protagonist. Nathan Drake helped establish a new template for video game protagonists, relatable, flawed, and genuinely human characters who grow and change throughout their adventures. His success demonstrated that players could connect with heroes who weren't perfect warriors or chosen ones, but rather ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. Cinematic storytelling in games. The Uncharted series, with Drake as its centerpiece, helped establish new standards for cinematic storytelling in video games. Drake's character development, realistic dialogue, and genuine emotional growth showed that games could deliver character arcs as compelling as those found in films or literature. The everyman hero. Drake's appeal lies partly in his accessibility. He's not a super soldier, mystical chosen one, or brilliant genius, but rather someone who succeeds through determination, quick thinking, and loyalty to friends. This everyman quality made him relatable to players who might not identify with more traditional power fantasy protagonists. Critical analysis. The violence problem. Critics have noted the disconnect between Drake's personality and the massive body counts in his games. While the character is portrayed as reluctant to kill and horrified by violence, gameplay requires dispatching hundreds of enemies. This ludonarrative dissonance raises questions about the medium's ability to reconcile gameplay mechanics with narrative characterization. However, this tension also creates interesting subtext about the nature of adventure stories and the violence often inherent in conflict resolution. Drake's discomfort with violence makes him more human even as the gameplay requirements make him an efficient killer. Privilege and consequences. Some critics have noted that Drake's adventures often involve significant collateral damage. Destroyed historical sites, civilian casualties, and cultural artifacts lost or damaged. His privilege as a white American allows him to engage in activities that might be viewed differently if performed by someone from the cultures whose artifacts he's pursuing. The games occasionally acknowledge these issues, particularly in A Thief's End, where Drake's destructive wake becomes a source of personal guilt and relationship tension. Conclusion. The complete adventure hero. Nathan Drake's enduring appeal lies in a successful combination of aspirational adventure hero traits with genuine human vulnerability and growth. He represents the possibility of living an extraordinary life while maintaining authentic relationships and moral principles. His journey from selfish treasure hunter to committed partner and friend demonstrates that maturity doesn't require abandoning all adventure and excitement. Drake's character development across the series creates one of gaming's most satisfying character arcs. His growth feels earned rather than arbitrary, driven by genuine consequences and relationships rather than plot convenience. The man who emerges in A Thief's End, still adventurous, but now grounded in commitment and responsibility, represents a mature resolution to the tension between excitement and stability. Perhaps most importantly, Nathan Drake proved that video game protagonists could be complex, evolving characters worthy of emotional investment. His legacy extends beyond his own series to influence how developers approach character development, narrative integration, and the balance between gameplay and storytelling. In a medium often criticized for shallow characterization and reliance on power fantasies, Nathan Drake stands as proof that players want heroes who feel human, flawed, growing, and ultimately relatable despite their extraordinary circumstances. He remains one of gaming's most beloved characters, not because he's perfect, but because his imperfections make his growth and ultimate redemption feel genuine and earned. His story ultimately suggests that the greatest adventures aren't necessarily about the treasures we find or the dangers we survive, but about the people we become through our choices and the relationships we build along the way. In that sense, Nathan Drake's true treasure was never gold or artifacts, but the family he found and the man he chose to become.